else. But this is a really cool space. So we are in this circular economy space called Sadarbnīca, which means supportive place to repair things. And there's something to see as well. But yeah, I'm just trying mic out and we'll start in 2 minutes so we can join everyone online. And I hope you have a really good mood because it's nice and sunny outside. It's not typical in Riga, and it's promised it's going to be 17 degrees. So we're all excited. It's almost summer for us. So. And you're also allowed to ask questions after the presentations. You can just raise your hand, but the problem is you have to speak in the mic. I always, at all times, will pass you mic. But this space is quite small, so I think we're going to manage this all. So, yeah. We are solving some technical details for those to join online. I see there are some people. I don't know, they can hear me on Zoom already?
Yeah, no problem.
I hope so. Okay. Okay. Yes, maybe those who are online, can you hear me? Great, super. Yes, so there is a comment section. We want you to be present as well. So you can comment anything, your experience, your questions, and whom you are addressing the question. And we will also involve you guys. Thank you so much. We are so happy to see you here.
Kāpēc? No, kas ir bažas par tā? Tikai nav. Es ļoti īsi runāšu, man nebūs tur baigi. Man bez tam tas te jādod runātājiem. Jā, viņš. Jā. Es tur... Varbūt krēsim uz aizmuguri pārnest, ja gribat aizmugurē palikt. Priekšā, jā? All the sun coming in, so someone has too much sun in the picture. I don't mind sun and warmth. We've been here for a couple of months. Basement. Bring outside and there are nice parks there with those blue small flowers. How we can put up a special tips for those who are on Zoom. Oh, why? Okay. Yeah, but you kind of enjoy your life. All right. So he went out with.
Everybody, you've gone very quiet for us. I don't know whether you can still hear us, but we can't hear you very well.
But it sounds wild. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, he was on the way. Yeah, that's still that's terrible, of course. Yeah.
I'm grabbing the mic and good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Eva Johansson. I'm a journalist and I'm very happy to be here. Those who are online, we are very happy you joined us, but we are here in Riga and it's sunny outside and we are in this really interesting space. It's a circular economy workspace called Sadarbnīca. And in the center, it hasn't been open for a long time, but we are here and we can also, during the coffee break, and check out the space and what they are doing here. So we're happy to have you here. And today we are going to talk about Riga Doughnut City Portrait. It's the first time me personally hear about this concept, so I'm really interested to hear about that. And Riga municipality, alongside several other European cities, has joined the EU mission on 100 climate neutral and smart cities by 2030. And these cities are acting as experimental and innovation hubs to enable all European cities to follow suit by 2050. And during this event, we are going to introduce the Doughnut economic concept, and also we are going to see the results of Riga City Doughnut Portrait, who is going to be presented here. And this report was developed since September 2024. And I would like to add that this event is organized by Riga Energy Agency and NGO Green Liberty in cooperation with Regenerise. And this is a hybrid event, as I mentioned. We are here in Riga. We are around, I think, 30 people. And those online, you can also ask questions, comment your ideas or experience. And if you are addressing a question, please write to whom. And after presentations, we will have a couple of minutes to ask them to presenters. And I would like to invite for the opening words Alisa Pizika. She's going to talk about the Net Zero Cities project and maybe a little bit about the Riga portrait. Yes, you're welcome on the stage.
Do you hear me? Right. Yeah, okay, great. And I just wanted to check we have a recording happening also, right? Because we need that afterwards. Perfect. So I'm happy to be here. Just in case, I'm reminding that we have 3 cities here. Actually, more than 3 cities, but the main cities. So we have Uppsala from Sweden, we have Braga from Portugal, and we can have Viskaļi from, it's the district from Istanbul. But we also have representatives from Brussels, originally from Poland, and we have a person from Tallinn, originally from Latvia. So it's very diverse, and we have also from Netherlands and France. And so it's a very diverse audience here today. But I'm happy to be here because we had a quite an exciting journey for the last, I think, 6-7 months. So we started this project which is part of Net Zero Cities Pilot City Program. And so Net Zero Cities Pilot City Program is where all the EU mission cities, so the ones who are eager to be climate neutral and smart cities by 2030 are part of. And one of the things we have, so we have this project, which is called Doughnut Economics Approach for Sustainable Decarbonization and Citizen Engagement, which in short is SEED. And yeah, it's not working. So we started the project last year in around June, and actually started working on the Doughnut portraits in September. So I think it's quite of a record time how we get from that to what we have at today. And it's also thanks to our experts from Regenerise and also our partners, Green Liberty and NGO. And basically the project is built in two phases. The first phase is about Doughnut economics, and we are piloting Doughnut economics in Riga. So no one has done it before in Latvia. So it's the first time we do it in general in Latvia. So we created a portrait as part of the first phase. And the second phase is going to be more about piloting innovative approaches to lower the air pollution in Riga city and also decarbonize the city center, but it's more focused on the transport. And the people who are going to stay here till the evening will hear what we're going to do in the phase 2. Yes, so basically I already thought about that, but I mean, throughout the project, which is 2 years, 2-year project, we're going to also, and we are already strengthening the competences of our municipality employees. We are also working with different kinds of stakeholders. We're working with citizens, which was also key for when we were developing the Doughnut city portrait for Riga. And so I think we didn't mention what is going to happen next, and we didn't show the agenda. So very briefly, the next we are going to talk about and explain what is Doughnut economics is. Then we are going to have a guest online explaining how cities around the world are using Doughnut economics in their cities. Then we are going to present our Doughnut portrait. And afterwards, we're going to have 3 speakers from Grenoble, from Glasgow, and from Riga, talking how they have been using this Doughnut approach in their cities. So each city actually does it a little bit differently. And that's why it's so interesting to see and to hear how they've done it and what they've learned from this journey. And also, of course, we want to motivate everyone else here to try it, to pilot it, and see how it works in your cities. Okay, thank you. That's it from me. And Willem?
Yeah. Questions?
Yeah.
Maybe questions for not now. Okay. Maybe there are questions online. Yes. Okay. Great. So yes. So as I told, I have no idea what the Doughnut economy is. I can imagine, but we have an expert, which is economist and specialist in transformation and urban economic development and policy. It's Willem van Winden, and he will have a presentation introducing us to this Doughnut economy principles. And those who are online, yes, you are welcome to during the presentation ask questions.
Yes. I hope it all works.
Yes.
Is this the clicker?
Yes, we try and it should work. Yes.
Okay, otherwise I can use the dots. Yeah. Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Willem van Winden, and I'm a founder of Regenerise company since 23. And also I work in Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences as a professor. And well, what I want to do now is to explain a little bit like what is the donut, because we know donut you can eat. This morning at breakfast in the hotel, we even had donuts, but it's not like that donut. It's a different one. But donut economy is, let's say, a more ecological and social approach to the economy. And I will explain in 15 minutes like the basics of it, because that is the foundation of what we have done for Riga, which is developing a city portrait for Riga, like how is Riga looking in the donuts. And it's really special for me to be in this place. It's a very special place, I think, because here's a place for recycling, for a circular economy, for the new kind of economy that we want. And actually, in another project, I was also involved in this developing of this one. We did in Amsterdam and in Barcelona and in some other cities similar activities. So it's a really special place for me personally to be here. So here you can see the actually godmother of the donut idea. It's Kate Raworth. She's an English economist, and she wrote the book Doughnut Economics, I think in 2017 or 18. Don't exactly sure if that's the Dutch translation or not. And she actually was not so satisfied with the way economists were thinking. So it was all about, economics was all about growth and making money and optimizing profits and so on. But in her approach, she says, well, a good economy is good for people and is good for the planet. That's the basic thing. And growth is not the aim. Growth can be, maybe can be there, but it's not the goal. The goal is to have an economy that is a safe and just space for humanity, an economy that is providing enough for people, like food, housing, transport, all the things you need, health, and so on, but also an economy that is good for the planet. And we all know that the way we have organized our economy now, it's not good for the planet. We are in big crisis in many ways. So the donut is showing where we should go in the world, actually, as economy. And you can see the donut is a green space, the safe space. And on the outer side of the donut, you can see the planetary boundaries, as it's called. So this is about the health of the planet. So our economy should not go beyond the ecological ceiling, as it is called. That's the dark green side outside of the donut. And the inside of the donut is the social aspect. So our economy should take care of people. We should have no shortfall. The economy should not create poverty or deprivation of any kind. So this is actually the very simple thing. I like it because it is so convincing and in a way simple, but on the other hand, we are very far away from that. And it's a target, it's a compass for where we have to go. Now the donut dimensions, so the social and the ecological dimensions, they are founded on well-established frameworks. Look at the inner side of the donut, the social foundation. This is largely based on the SDGs from the United Nations. So the whole world actually agrees on it, although the United States now no longer maybe, I don't know. Anyway, I guess we all here in this room, we do. And so that's the 12 dimensions of the social foundation are derived from the SDGs. And the ecological ceiling, the outer side of the donut, this is based on scientific work by the Stockholm Resilience Institute. It's a very renowned scientific institute that is all the time calculating how far are we transgressing the planetary boundaries and the ecological borders. And this is all measured precisely. Every year they produce reports where we can see how far the world is going beyond the ecological boundaries. Well, here you can see it's all measured and it's all the, I don't bore you with it, you can read it in Kate Raworth's book. This picture is actually a bit worrying. This shows you how the planet is doing, the health of the planet for all the planetary boundaries. You can see that in 2009, 7 boundaries were assessed and 3 of them were crossed. And in 2023, they assessed 2 more boundaries, but 6 of them were crossed. So you can see a lot of the planetary boundaries are being crossed and increasingly so. And an important thing about the donut to me is that these planetary boundaries, it's not only CO2 emissions. Because in the net zero cities, we talk a lot about CO2. And of course, CO2 is important as a planetary boundary. It's maybe a very important one, that's climate change. But there are many others, like ocean acidification, biodiversity loss, chemical pollution, land conversion, and so on. So to me, that is really one of the added value of the donut, is that you do not only focus on CO2 or methane or emissions, but you take a bigger picture of the planetary boundaries and you look at the social aspects as well, because reducing emissions and so on can go at the cost of people. So there are trade-offs sometimes between the social and the environmental, and sometimes there are also win-wins. If you do something, it benefits both the ecological and the social, and that's where you want to be, of course. So that's, for me, one of the strengths of the donut, that you make this connection between the ecological and the social. So here we see the picture from for some countries. Where do we stand in terms of the donut? The Doughnut Economic Action Lab, which is led by Kate Raworth, they are measuring this, and also the University of Leeds is very active. If you go to their website, you can read for every country, where does that country stand? And here you see some huge differences. For example, the UK, it's doing quite poor on the outside of the donut, the ecological impact, but it's doing quite well on the inside, the social. So it means people have enough food, they have enough health maybe. Well, there are issues, of course, but the main problem is ecological. And if you look at a poor country like Malawi, there it's the other way around. So this country has a small economy. The impact on the planet, on the CO2 emissions and so on is relatively low, but they do have a problem on the social side. There's a lot of poverty, there's health issues and so on. So looks like there's a kind of trade-off between the two. And well, we should consider each country on its own merits, and also each city. And that's what we come to later. Like, you can do this also for cities, and that's what we've done for Riga. So here's my own country, the Netherlands. I cannot be proud of it. It's really bad in the red, especially in the planetary boundaries. And this graph shows you a lot of countries where they stand on the donut. On the horizontal axis, you see the ecological impact, and on the vertical, you see the social. So the countries to the right are the rich ones. They are socially in the good position, but environmentally very bad. And on the left side, you see the poorer countries mostly, and for them it's the other way around. And on the top left, you see the donut. That's where we should be, all of us. And you can see we have to move sort of to the northwest corner of this graph. So donut economy is setting let's say it's a compass, like where do we want to go? Where should we go? But the question is, of course, how? What is needed and what goes wrong? Why are we not currently in the donut? What's the problem? And in the book, Kate Raworth suggests a number of design principles for the economy. What should we do differently from now? And I don't have time to go through all of them. I recommend you to read the book, but it's really great to see what she suggests. First is change the goal. And that's an important one to me, because mostly the goal for many policymakers in countries is growth. Grow as much as possible, growth is good. But actually, if you look at this, the goal should not be growth. The goal should be, how can we get into this donut? And maybe you need growth for that, or maybe not. Maybe you need something else. That's an open question. There are many other things in this donut principles. Like, what we should do is maybe to design to distribute and create to regenerate. So design to distribute, it means we need a more honest and fair distribution of wealth among people. That's really clear. And create to regenerate, it means we need an economy that is not all the time using more resources, more raw materials, more fossil fuels, and so on. But we need to create an economy that can regenerate the things we already destroyed, because many ecosystems are in a bad state. We need to regenerate them, and therefore we need to recreate that. So here it's the design principles again, and to me this is really the heart of donut economics. Maybe not even the donut itself, but the principles, how we get into the donut. Now, the last part of my presentation is about how can you make this relevant for cities. Because cities are, of course, very important. That's now 80% of all humans live in cities. So what's going on there is really relevant. And what you can do with this donut is to unroll it, as you show it here. So still you would have the ecological ceiling and you have the social foundation, but you add another dimension, which is the local aspect and the global aspect. It means that many of the things we do are local, they have local impacts, but many other things we do have global impacts. For example, if you buy a computer, that computer is full of components that come from other countries in the world. It's produced somewhere else. So what happened there? You know, who made that computer? Were there maybe child labor involved? Were there hazardous working conditions? Or was that made by a factory that is pushing out a lot of CO2? We have to know that to understand our impact locally on the global level. And here is the problem that a lot of things we do in richer cities, it looks very nice. You think cities are getting greener, car-free, everything great. But our impact on the rest of the world from richer cities is huge. And this is something we should take into account. Therefore, the key question is, when you translate the donut economics to cities, is how can your city be a home to thriving people in a thriving place, locally great, while respecting the well-being of all people, not just in your city, but in the whole world, and the health of the whole planet. So not just a green city where you live, but a healthy planet. That's the question. And there you can, based on that, you can make 4 dimensions. It's called the 4 lenses in the donut economics approach. You have on the top the ecological, and on the bottom the social, and then on the left the local, and on the right the global. And you can ask those 4 questions to your city. The first question is local ecological. This is about how can your city be as generous as the wildland next door. Every city was built on an area that used to be nature. So what we do when we build a city, we take away nature and we build a city. So what you do here is, can we make cities in such a way that they are just as good as nature in terms of what they produce in ecosystem services? The second question is local and social. That is about your local people in your city. How can everyone in your city thrive? That's the question there. The third question is global ecological. So how can your city respect the health of the whole planet? So this is the story of the laptop and many other things that are very important. And finally is, how can your city respect the well-being of the people worldwide? So that is about how do we contribute to poor working conditions elsewhere, or the disruption of local communities in Africa or Asia or wherever. So in a city donut, you ask those 4 questions, the 4 lenses, and you try to measure and see where you stand. And that's what we have done in the Riga city donuts. So here there's a lot of metrics that you can use. It gets a bit technical. I don't bore you with that now, but you can calculate. And especially what is difficult to measure is the global impact of what we do locally. Because local, we have a lot of data. We collect everything, and so we know. But the global aspect is very hard to measure, and that's a big challenge. I think we should realize that our impact globally is huge, and we should be able to better measure it. That's it for now. So that's the introduction for the donut. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for the introduction. It was very brief, but understandable.
Yeah.
Are there any questions or comments? Are there online maybe for Zoom?
No, but maybe no.
Let's see. Oh, great. We don't have any questions. So it has been a really good presentation.
Okay.
So thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we have someone online as a next speaker. I know what I can hear myself now. If I stand here. Good. So we have a next speaker, and it's Leonora Grcheva from the Cities and Regions Lead at Doughnut Economic Action Lab. And she is going to talk, we have this introduction about this donut economy itself, but about the cities and their role in this donut economy. So I hope that you can hear us and that you can join us online. Let's see, we are trying technically to put you online. Leonora, we can see you, but we cannot hear you yet. So
Can you hear me?
yes, great. So the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Very, very happy to be here. So my name is Leonora. I'm the Cities and Regions lead at the Doughnut Economics Action Lab. And the Doughnut Economics Action Lab is this small organization that was co-founded by Kate Raworth, the author of Doughnut Economics, with the idea and the aim to support the practice of change makers around the world that are experimenting with these theoretical concepts in practice. So my role is to support the work of local governments, local and regional governments around the world that are experimenting with the Doughnut. So I'll share briefly some kind of insights as to what is happening across the world, with majority of cities still in Europe that are practicing these ideas in various ways. How does that look like? And with especially a focus on the Doughnut portrait, the piece of work that Riga is launching today, and how that is being translated into different avenues of actions across the world. So let me just share my screen and hopefully it works, and just shout if something is not working.
It's very good. So we can see it.
So we are, just to highlight, as you said, we're a lab, and this is a growing
Sorry, Leonora, we cannot hear you. Just a second. We have some technical difficulties here. We can hear you on the laptop, but not in the. Okay, let's try once again. Yeah, you can speak
testing.
now. Yes, we can hear you again. Sorry.
Did you hear? Should I begin from the beginning?
You can start from beginning. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So let me then go back. Should I introduce myself again? None of that was heard.
Actually, you can continue because we heard most of the part in beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't hear only like 5 seconds of your last.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. So essentially the practice of putting Doughnut economics into municipal reality, into policies and practices, is really kind of an evolving practice of global innovation, exchange, and learning. So on one side, we at the Doughnut Economics Action Lab continue to make a lot of freely available tools and resources, like the methodology to make the city portrait, but also different people, organizations, cities around the world make their own tools, their own resources, their own approaches that they share. So our platform becomes like this kind of convening place of openly shared resources and insights that are put in the commons. And so cities around the world are really experimenting and innovating and learning from one another, having the opportunity to always build on the best practice of those that came before them. We are now, we basically have there are around 50 local and regional governments around the world that have in some way formally engaged with Doughnut economics to date, or are either through the past few years or are currently doing it, from these many cities in Europe, from Glasgow and Grenoble that you will hear from today, Amsterdam, Cornwall, Grand Geneva, Barcelona, to cities in other sides of the world, like Thimphu, like Wellington, like Nanaimo in Canada, Mexico City, etc. So a very diverse place of cities, and each of them has been doing a very different thing with Doughnut economics and really tracing their own path. But studying, and it's a very flexible and inviting, it's a very flexible approach, inviting municipalities to really adapt this to their own realities and needs within some boundaries and within some, let's say, soft guidelines or asks to respect really the integrity of the ideas. But overall, looking across these 50 formal applications, and through a survey and a research we recently did, studying the various policy documents and surveying the cities, and having had ongoing conversations and learning in the past 4 years, we identified these main 5 ways in which cities are engaging with Doughnut economics. So And here you can see kind of how many of those 50 cities are doing which of these types of engagement. So most cities will maybe start with one thing, but then gradually kind of spread the ideas across various streams of action. So many cities work with what we call database diagnostic and monitoring, and that's really based on the data portrait. So developing a data portrait like the one that Riga will share today, and then using that in various ways to measure, to monitor, to inform decision-making across a municipality. Many places use donut economics ideas as a place-wide strategic compass. So really this big strategic holistic model lends itself as a sort of a unifying framework that sits across different strategies and policies, across different sectors and departments, and kind of serving as this high-level, long-term strategic compass, guiding decision-making, guiding external work and conversations, etc., kind of creating a new type of a transition pathway for many places. The third type that we can see in many places is what I refer to sector or project-specific visioning. So this is really focusing on a project, building a new housing complex or a policy, climate policy, circular policy, health policy. So building this idea is a visioning collaboration tool and a framework of thinking and building within specific sectors and policies. Dialogue and co-creation. So because of this very, again, holistic, cross-silo, cross-sector nature of the donut and of the four lenses of this donut unroll that Willem just shared, many places are using it as a workshopping tool, almost as a conversation tool, as a debate tool, guiding or helping inform dialogue and co-creation. So within a city, between different departments, but also between a city and its citizens or private stakeholder or specific workshops focusing on various areas, etc. And the final way that many cities have picked up so far is impact assessment and decision making. So specifically designing, based on the donut, impact assessment tool, assessing the potential positive or negative impact across social and ecological themes of decisions, policies, projects, and steering them so that decisions are really brought in a more holistic way rather than informed by kind of a narrower checklist, which is what many cities have been dealing with. So this is in no way kind of a definite list. This is just learning from what has been happening so far. So today I'm really gonna focus in the presentation on sharing the work based on kind of database diagnostic and monitoring, but often in many places, the beginnings of this work are through doing a portrait and to starting kind of a data portrait work that then ends up being kind of connecting and opening different streams of action as well. So to begin with the basics of what is this database approach, and that is the data portrait of place methodology. So what the data portrait of place is turning these four lenses, this visioning and thinking framework of the four lenses of the donut that Willem just shared. So the local social, local ecological, global social, global ecological, into a quantified, visualized state of place type of portrait. So kind of a data dashboard of a certain kind that answers the question, how close are we currently, is our place currently to meeting the needs of all people within the means of the living planet? So how close are we to helping local people? How close are we to being as generous and nearby nature, etc. So what does that mean? It means that in each of these four lenses, there's a number of themes. This one that you're looking at now is the local social one. You can see that we have food, water, health, education, housing, energy, etc. So these are all the themes that we need to be measuring, talking about, and acting on if we want to meet the needs of all people and help all local people thrive. So for each of these themes, and similarly in each of the 4 lenses, there's a number of themes or dimensions that help us deeper into detail. So for each of these, we pull together, and we invite, the methodology invites to compare a city target or a threshold. So what is our aim? What is our long-term goal when we look at, and in this example, income and work? And let's say we choose, or we already have, or we develop for the purposes of a portrait, a target or a threshold that says by 2030, there will be no residents living under the poverty line in our place. And then compare that against what we call a city snapshot or a performance indicator that answers the questions, how well are we currently doing towards that? And we say, okay, we have 20% of our residents currently live under the poverty line. So this enables us to measure, in a way, to compare how far we are from that target. And then we do that across all 4 lenses and across all dimensions. And often this means pulling together existing targets, goals that we may have across different strategies, visions, policy documents in the city, different data sources where we measure the performance. So most cities will have wealth of data already, but often it will be this kind of living across different places. And many places, most places that go through a data portrait, will have to develop new data or look for new sources as well to fill in the gaps that become visible through this holistic approach. So once you do that for all 4 lenses, you basically reach a place where you can visualize. This is the example of Barcelona, similar as those kind of national country donuts, a city version of how close you are currently to living inside the donut. And then once you visualize it in the 4 lenses, you can re-roll it and go back to this kind of donut visual that really immediately communicates kind of this complex set of data. So that's the data portrait, and it can also, again, it looks in different variations. You can see here one way of visualizing it. You can see on the right one way of turning it into an engaging workshop, as they did in Leeds. And there's always a data Excel sheet somewhere lying in the background, or maybe a more a report that goes deeper into the various areas of actions of the city, etc. So what is new in a portrait, comparing it to different approaches of working with data in cities or dashboards or monitors? What tends to be new is that it's a holistic, integrated state of place. So it's a visual dashboard that connects typically or often disconnected data with indicators, with targets, with goals. So all this information that lives in different places. That it's not just a data, but it's also a storytelling tool. So it's a compass, it's visualization of this compass for change that informs a new way of thinking and shares something new and different. That it's not just about what we're measuring, but about specifically setting a final destination. So we're not just setting tracking indicators on how we're doing. We're not just setting immediate goals, which we often have in municipal practice. So we're not just setting, 4-year action plans or 2020, 2030 goals and targets, but also long-term compass, so long-term ideal goals. And these goals are essentially science-based, based on the planetary boundaries, as well as ethics-based, based on the idea that no human should live deprivation. So no social deprivation and no ecological degradation, reminding ourselves and giving us that long-term compass of what should always be our long-term goals. And finally, it is an easy to communicate visual. So it tells a complex story of how a city is doing now compared to where we want to be, in a single drawing. So it's helping to drive new and different conversations and broaden the understanding of what sustainability could be and should be wider. So moving towards kind of the purpose, let's say, what purpose could a Doughnut city portrait serve? These are some of the main, and again, this is in no way a limited set of options, but rather crowdsourced learning from the different places around the world that have been doing this. And these are some of the main types, let's say, main categories seen so far of uses. And I'll share some examples, kind of glimpse through a series of examples of each. So one is of using it as a multi-stakeholder compass for territorial transition in different ways. Second is to guide municipal high-level decision-making, so budgeting, prioritization, monitoring, etc. And the third one is to inform specifically policies and projects and that level of decision-making. So to share briefly I will only give a very speedy tour, and you will be hearing from, I believe, from Glasgow and Grenoble today, so we'll get a chance to go much more deep dive into how kind of a journey of one single place can look like. But here are just some examples of different uses specifically related to the portrait. So in Barcelona, where they developed the portrait in a collaboration between the municipality and the university, it underpinned this citizen commitment for a more sustainable Barcelona, which is a 10-year manifesto of this collaborative partnership called Barcelona Sostenible between more than 2,000 organizations in the city, convened and chaired by the city. So anything from industries to businesses to schools to civil sector organizations, etc., already had an existent organization that develops their 10-year kind of agenda for collective action towards sustainability in a city. And they were in a period of renewing that. They already were coming to the end of the previous 10-year one. And in their renewal, in their building of the new citizen commitment, the portrait served as essentially, showing the state of the place, helping them set the priorities and identify the key challenges, the key areas in which collective action and commitment for collective action should be taken. So designing these 2 priority city challenges of decarbonization and saving water that then everybody can kind of join and commit and take action towards. In Bad Nauheim, which is a city in Germany, at this point they didn't even have the quantified donut, but they had a kind of the vision donut that guided their long-term, few months long citizen assembly for climate measures, so like a futures workshop where they had a representative sample of citizens working to develop a set of priority climate measures for the city using the donut as a visioning tool. So like using that learning to guide the conversation and then also to screen these projects that were developed up to kind of a finance and implementation stage. Also using kind of the donut as a way to screen and select which ones should go ahead in each of the next stages. So how many of the social dimensions, how many of the ecological dimensions are being targeted with it action? How much are we thinking beyond just climate and across all the different ecological needs, from land degradation to biodiversity to waterways health, while at the same time thinking about social justice and transition. So using the donut in guiding that process. In Melbourne, in a process that hasn't been led by the municipality, but by a partnership of kind of a coalition of organizations, of grassroots-born organizations that a city then, I think, is one of the partners in it. They built a portrait through a long process of participation, and is meant to serve as a kind of a new compass for progress as a city. So an interactive platform giving everybody a practical way of measuring and thinking and talking about how everybody in different roles and places is supporting people and planet to thrive. And they use kind of the compass, the portrait and the many dimensions to map all the different stories of action that are already happening across the city, because of course in every city so much is already happening to take action on climate, on housing, on equality, etc. So using this as a way to bring in all the stories together, to stitch together a kind of a collective story of how everybody's taking action together while identifying where more action is needed. Similarly, but at a much more local and grassroots scale, this neighborhood initiative in Birmingham in the UK have been using donut economics as kind of their guiding the collective learning and action in kind of a long-term projects for a transition of the neighborhood. So it's the donut, they use the 4 lenses as a weaving thread through a lot of local action of both learning, you know, anything from school clubs and workshops with local citizens to gardening, to exploring how to retrofit an entire street, to doing projects for protecting the local environment. So a really localized action at a neighborhood scale guided by donut economics. And at a lot, kind of zooming out again at a bigger scale, in Mexico City, they used it as part of their 2040 development plan. So visualizing kind of a state of a donut on the left, the portrait of where the city is currently doing, but then actually visualizing 2 scenarios for 2040, these 2 that you can see on the right. So scenario when a certain number of actions are taken, and one if they continue down a business as usual pathway. So they used it as a way to inform a public debate essentially and communicate complex planning across different policies and sectors. These are all kind of the examples for the multi-stakeholder use. Now, focusing more on kind of the municipal high-level decision-making, some examples from Copenhagen, where they have like a yearly donut report. So Copenhagen Donut 2023, 2024, once a year, meant to serve as a kind of a status report that informs the prioritization internally of projects between kind of budget negotiations and allocations, political priorities, strategic priorities of different departments, etc. So really kind of a compass for internal prioritization of action, of where identifying the areas where most action is needed, so where the wedges are biggest and where potentially kind of cross-sectoral priority strategic projects should be invested in to target those priorities. And similarly, kind of informing internal decision-making in Cornwall, they've designed this decision-making wheel based, again, on kind of the donut and linked to that state of place. And this decision-making wheel is essentially a tool that allows anybody, any project leader, any policy leader to go through a adapted questionnaire about their specific project and assess whether their plans are currently having positive or negative impact on all of these social dimensions and ecological dimensions. So really getting this visual wheel showing, you know, all the reds and all the greens in how they're currently doing, how their project will, the potential impact that it would have, allowing them to kind of redesign and steer projects and inform decision-making as well, based on a holistic impact across many dimensions rather than just kind of cost-benefit analysis and maybe a few other things. So I'll just, I know I may be a bit over time, so final example in Nanaimo, where they use it specifically to inform policies and projects. So it's kind of a monitor tool, and it's not shaped as a donut, but shaped as a monitoring bar, but really integrated across this long-term city plan and all the different areas of action and all the different plans. And finally, another example from Amsterdam, I'm sure Willem can speak a lot more to it, where they used it to inform and to serve as a compass in the circular strategy specifically, and in the implementation agenda for a circular Amsterdam. And these were all examples more linked to kind of the donut data work, but there's a lot of work then happening in places that goes way beyond the portrait, but like links to it in different ways, such as this example of building a new school based on donut economic principles. This is in Tomelilla in Sweden, where they're starting this long-term project of really rethinking this educational institution and piece of land in the city as a new place for thinking about 21st century planning, but 21st century education as well, based on donut economics. And another kind of beyond the portrait idea coming from the bottom up in Amsterdam were these donut deals, where really they designed this idea of kind of collaborations between two and many partners, where they agree to target at least one issue on the ecological ceiling and at least 3 issues on the social foundations in a collaborative project, and kind of that they formalize as a donut deal, so jointly targeting different parts of the donut. And just to finish some of the insights that we've been learning from cities and we've learned from surveys and from conversations on the main reported benefits from this early work, still very early work of first years of implementing this idea into practice. And a lot of the benefits are about the shifts that they bring upon internally and the ways of working. So that they gave new language and narrative for a new way of thinking. So a possibility to facilitate a common debate, new conversations about the shape of the future, giving a common language to speak between sectors, leading to a cultural shift towards more system-based, holistic and integrated thinking and policy making across municipalities and across sectors within municipalities, specifically increased cross-department transversal cooperation and breaking down of silos due to kind of its holistic nature and these cross-cutting projects and ways of working and thinking. The fact that it has served as a unifying framework, so it has helped connect different streams of actions, different plans and strategies. It has connected political to technical teams internally, so it has helped connect strategy to services that so often kind of live disconnected life. And finally, that it has helped to talk and act on global interconnections and impacts beyond city limits that have often been kind of neglected across different policies and priorities. So I'll stop here. This is a guide that we have that you can check out if you're interested to learn more and dive deeper into the work of cities. But otherwise, I'll stop here and welcome any questions if there's time.
Thank you, Leonora. So, as you can hear, there are applause in the room. That's for you. Are there any questions? Very complicated things. Tried to make it like as simple as possible, but maybe there are some ideas, comments, or I don't know, experiences. Yes, Leon has a question. Yes, you need to come here for a mic. Yeah, sorry. It's quite actually a long wire.
Hello. I just had a simple question. Nice to see you, Leonora. So if I would imagine I'm from a different municipality than Riga, and if I wouldn't have started already doing this process, what should be the first thing that a city should do when they decide, okay, we want to try?
Thanks, Liana. You're very helpful to ask me something I forgot to say. I would say the first thing would be you can get in touch with us. So you can get in touch with the Doughnut Economics Action Lab. We exist for this, and we operate offering this kind of free and light support and a place of convening. So most places will get in touch with us, and we can help in a kind of an beginning exploratory conversation if that is helpful to understand your what you're interested in, what your context in, and rather than we're not able to deliver projects, we're not able to guide anything for you, but we can help to refer you to the latest thinking, the latest example of other cities, the latest tools, etc., and kind of help you get started a bit. And I also recommend the guide that I shared in the end, so that Cities and Regions, Let's Get Started. It's kind of a collection of all the case studies from around the world. There's 12 case studies diving deeper into what different places are doing. So it's normally a good place to understand and compare to where are your potential areas of interest and action. So most cities come from a very different place. Someone will, it will be a deputy mayor that will approach us because they're kind of setting a new political agenda altogether, or it could be just it could be the head of the climate department and they're working on a climate strategy, or it could be someone from a strategy team looking for a new cross-departmental tool. So people start from very different places, and that's why kind of the examples look very different from city to city and So we can help a bit with that. And importantly, what we will do and what we do for every place is connect you then to this community of practice. So we do online peer-to-peer gatherings. We do once a year an in-person one. Riga know they've joined us at these gatherings where you can learn directly from other cities and exchange and kind of build collaborations, etc.
Thank you. I also have a question. So you mentioned in the beginning and also during the presentation that this is a holistic approach. And I was thinking then maybe who is the key player or who should start or take action? Because Lena just asked, what citizens can do or NGOs or those who are active, but then who should be the one who is the key player or there are none? It's just like a holistic thing.
There's a none. Yes, it's a tricky question, but I mean the answer is there's no general answer, and there shouldn't be, and we kind of being a lab of experimentation based, in the UK and other places in Europe, we're a small organization, are very aware that each place should have their own journey, and we generally work guided by this strategic principle of go where the energy is. So it could be, a municipality driving the world, or it could be a big partnership between the civil sector and municipality and citizens, or it could be a group of citizens. It's just depending who drives the work will drive what type of action will be taken, but it really could be anybody. And I should highlight, I just shared, I'm the city's lead, so I focused on the work of municipalities, but I have colleagues that focus on the work of schools, of communities. So there's a lot more examples coming from the grassroots level as well, or various kind of organizations, research settings, etc. So anybody can get started, and anybody can lead within their own realm of kind of power.
Business as well, Santa is mentioning. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Eleonora. Are there more questions in the room? And before we continue, thank you, Leonora, for the presentation. It was very useful. Once again, applause. Before we continue, maybe we could open the door, and those who are sitting directly in the sun, you can move. There are some places here that there are in the shadow. I was sitting a small round there, and I understood how crazy the sun is. So please, those who are not feeling so well in this heat, you can just change your seats, or we can, switch a little bit so that you feel comfortable. If it's too hot or it's not comfortable, please, it's a nice, free and friendly environment. You can move around. So we heard what the donut economy is. So we heard the city roles in this donut economy, and then we are here. One of the main reasons is to have this portrait of Riga, and I would like to invite two ladies on the stage, and it's as NGO Green Liberty representative Liene Krauja, and also a consultant of regionalized Garants Brol. So Liene, you have a mic? So Liena's taking this mic. The floor is all yours.
I'll take this one from you.
Don't faint. This is crazy here.
If it gets too loud, we can close the door some moment, but I think we can keep it open for a while. So hello, everyone. We are super happy that you have all arrived here. And we are also, at least for me, it feels a bit like a celebration because this is the first time we can really show the Riga portrait to someone, the fruits of our long work and effort. So we'll start. In this presentation, we have a few questions that we try to answer. First is, how did we build the city portrait? So what was the process behind it? Also, what does it say about Riga? So how do we look like within this framework? And the last one is about how can we use it and how can you use this approach as well, maybe in your municipalities. So if we look from the start, the thing is that, as Leonora mentioned, each city, each municipality, they have a different context in how they use the donut and implement it. And similarly, also for us, for Riga, we didn't really know how to do it before. but it didn't mean that we cannot do it. And this presentation is a bit like also inspiration for you to realize that we were not experts in the donut economics. Well, she was with Willem together, which were our consultants. But here locally, for example, us from Green Liberty, we had been working a bit with Doughnut framework, but more theoretically, and we hadn't tried it before, and the same also for Riga. So if we look at the timeline, we can see that the first big thing was that Riga joined the Net Zero City Network in 2022. Probably your cities more as well and similar, maybe a bit earlier, maybe a bit later. But the first thoughts and the first activities that were related to donut economics started in June 2024. And this was actually in a way of presentations to us, to Green Liberty and to Riga, about what exactly is donut economics and how does it work. And it was actually a presentation given by Willem to us, and also Leonora, I think, was joining, and they were explaining the same thing that they were explaining today, just in a bit more detail, more specific to us, so we can start to understand, okay, what exactly do we need for this project to succeed? Then throughout the summer, there was the work for municipality, and also actually in the autumn. So the first thing was that the municipality had to find the data they already have, because each city, hopefully each city collects a lot of information about what's the state, for example, of the roads, how many cars are there, how many people are going to schools, etc., etc. A lot of different categories. And luckily in Riga, there were a lot of data points. But on the one hand, it was really positive, because that meant that we can use a lot of the data. But at the same time, it was a bit of a problem, because now we have these 300 different data points, and we're like, how do we put it all in one donut? So yeah, the first part was municipal data collection. Then another big thing I wanted to actually put in was a deal Doughnut Economics Action Lab in-person meeting we had in Bad Nauheim, which is in Germany. And I went there together with Eva from Riga, and this was a gathering for the cities who are working with donut economics. And this was really helpful just to see the broader context. These examples that Leonora gave in the previous presentation about what is each city doing, we actually could go and talk with them and really share our experience, ask questions about what should we do better. And these gatherings that Doughnut Economics Action Lab is organizing are really, really helpful for you to feel that you're also part of the community, that you're not struggling all alone with the donut. Further on in winter was the main part where we were making the report. We were selecting the data, understanding what indicators should we use from all the data that we had. And also, in the end, even though we had so many data points, we still were missing a lot of information, mostly on global aspects. But we'll talk about these examples a bit later. So a big part of the task was understanding what additional data we need and how do we even measure it. Yeah, and then afterwards, at the same time, we were trying to write the report, and finally now it's finished, and we are in the very last stages of publishing it. But the summary is out. You will be able to take a look at it as well. And as you can see, now we have the presentation of the data portrait. So it's really a big journey until now.
Yeah. Does it work? Yeah, thanks. Thanks. Okay, so now we will present to you how did we build the data portrait. So I will share with you some of the methodology, give you an overview, and then also give you some new approach or tools we used, some example. So to start, we have this element of a portrait. We know we want to obtain this. So on the left side, you have the local lenses. And on the right side, you have the global lenses. And inner ring is social, outer ring is global. So we already have this basis to start with. This is the portrait we want. And then we know already all the different dimensions, as Willem described earlier. So for instance, you have all this ecological, so on the outer side, harvest energy, store carbon. And then in the inner ring, you have food, water, health. And you see that the left side is actually a symmetry of the right side. So we can have a sort of comparison as well. So we have this dimension, but now how do we measure this dimension? That's the question we have. And I would like to show you the methodology we had to fill in those dimensions, to know the level of degradation or deprivation for each. And I want to explain via an example. So we pick one dimension that was a housing category. And we ask ourselves, how do we measure the housing situation in Riga? How do we measure, I don't know, it could be homelessness. This is one indicator. It could be also social housing in Riga. What is the state of social housing? Or there are many different indicators you could use. So how to pick, like Lina said, we have 300 data points, so we had to select. And I want to explain how did we select. So our approach to find the indicators. So first we asked our one question. It was, how do we define what is deprivation? So in housing, what is deprivation? We had this question to define the deprivation is, can residents access housing and have decent living conditions? And from this question, we found indicators that could be an answer. So we looked through the municipality data, and we found two interesting indicators that can answer this question. The first one is the availability of housing. Are people satisfied with the availability of housing in Riga? Can they find easily an apartment, for instance? And the second one we chose was the unsatisfactory housing condition. Are people in some kind of deprivation, not satisfied with their living condition? And it's pretty important. And then we had other indicators related to housing, but they were not so much telling us something about the deprivation. For instance, social housing, it's interesting to know how Riga is developing that, but does it really show deprivation? We thought it was more an extra. So we wanted to really give the full picture. So we had those two indicators for knowing what is the state of the deprivation. But then we also have a zooming in box that give a bit more detail, but not necessarily focus on the deprivation. And then a policy highlight box to see what Riga is doing. So for instance, Riga is renovating 1,400 apartments. So we also indicated some of the policy of Riga. So we really have a full picture, but the data portrait would be really about this overshoot and shortfall. So we really have this picture. Once you have those indicators, you need to define, you will have a number, but you need to define, is it deprivation or not? So the next step is, where do I need to point? Thanks. So the next step is setting a threshold. A threshold is the level where you define what is acceptable under the threshold and what is where do the deprivation will start. So we have to fix this number where you have the deprivation starting. We always try to follow rationally. For instance, we looked at international standards, the average in the European Union, or also we also tried to have zero tolerance for human rights abuse, or we didn't want any deprivation. So we tried to be not tolerant with deprivation. For instance, homelessness should not exist, you know? And so we have to be still a bit strict with that. But sometimes we did not have an international indicator, like an international standard. So we had to find one ourselves and justify it. So these thresholds are also quite ethical. Like it's a question, what is just or not just? So it's really a starting point for discussion, and we want really to say it's not a rigid limit. It's actually, yeah, it's something ethical. So it's not everybody can have a different opinions, but we always in the report try to justify our opinion and how we thought through. I will now go back to the housing example. So the indicator I gave, 46% of the residents gave a positive rating for housing availability. And we say the threshold should be over 70. This means we think if people have a positive opinion of housing availability, there should not be too much problem with it. We don't want to say 90%, for instance, because it's really asking a lot of people to be happy with it, and there will always be people having some concerns or some personal preference. So we can't say 90%, but we thought it has to be high. And so here we see 46% are satisfied, so it's pretty low. The second indicator for housing, 22% of the household indicated unsatisfactory housing condition. And we said until 5% it is okay, because sometimes you have occasional issue, some really exceptions. Sometimes you struggle with your apartment, but it's not on the long term. And we think over 5% it will be a bit more systematic issues. So that's why we say 5%. And if you look on both sides, we are actually, here we are under the threshold that we fixed. And here we are over. So we say, as a conclusion, we are in a high deprivation because the housing, the houses are not so available on the market, and there are pretty much a lot of unsatisfactory housing conditions. So that was the example for housing that I wanted to go through with you. But
I wanted to add that we had how many categories together? Like 40, I think?
I think 15 per lens, like more or less.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. So that's why I can't go through each one with you. Like it would be a bit too much, but you can look in the report. I just wanted to say kind of the methodology, explain. And we have specificity for each lens. So I wanted to just dive a tiny bit into it so you can understand. So this was the social local lens. Housing is how people are housed locally in Riga. The specificity with this lens is that we looked a lot at resident opinions. What do Riga residents think of their own city? You know, it's quite important. And then some other evaluation of can they access essential needs? Are there problems with some services? This is pretty important. And then unmet needs, for instance, if you take dimension, the energy, you would look at energy poverty. Like it would be not meeting the needs of some people. So that was the kind of indicators we looked at. Then the next lens there are four in total. The next local ecological, we looked at different things. We looked less at opinions because ecology is a bit different. So we look more at metrics. For instance, air quality measurements, things a bit more ecological, yeah. And we looked at standards, and we used this is pretty new. This is the Doughnut Economic Action Lab that gave us the idea to use this tool, actually. This is the ecosystem intelligence tool. And we want to look at the nature surrounding Riga. So we mapped Riga. This is actually a map of Riga, if you look a bit closer. And we had to map the different areas. And we compare Riga today with the nature surrounding, like the natural state. And we looked at different ecosystem services. For instance, air quality. What is the difference between air quality in Riga and the surrounding nature? How can we be as generous as the surrounding nature? Or it can be biodiversity, etc. So this was an interesting tool to get indicators. The third lens, social global, how do we impact by our consumption? How do we impact people worldwide? So we really looked at our consumption patterns, and we looked how it can impact people. For instance, do you rely on a supply chain that exploit people, exploit children? So we really looked at our consumption for the social global. And as we say, it's pretty difficult to define our impact. It was a lot of assumption, but it's not always easy to find the data. There are not so many data about it. And then the last lens, ecological global. We want to look at how we are doing worldwide with the ecology and what is the responsibility of Riga into the climate crisis, for instance. We want to look at our imports, how does it pollute, the local production, our export of waste. For instance, if we export toxic waste, we are pretty damaging on the global side. And also our emission, how does it contribute to the whole picture? So this was pretty much the methodology condensed. And now we will look at the portrait we got. So the results. This is what we are waiting for. Yeah, drum roll. So basically, we want to look at this portrait and see what does it say about the situation here. This is the portrait.
Unfortunately, we cannot see the text too well, but at least you can see the picture.
Maybe I can get closer, I don't know. Yeah, but I will first tell you how to read it, because first we need to know how we read this thing. And then what does it say? Yeah, so as we say, the green space is the donut, is the safe and just space. And then everything pink or red going out. Here, outside is the degradation of the ecology. The side?
No, I mean, here you can see the levels.
Yeah, I will come to it. First, so here, this outer ring, this is everything ecological, where we're going over planetary boundaries. And inside, as we say, it's social, so all the deprivation, the social shortfall. And here we have the names, and here icons, so food, water, health, etc. Left is local, right is global. And we have this scale, as Lina said, from zero deprivation, so the donut, to emergency. And I will just describe a tiny bit what it means. So you have, so this is the safe space. Then near zero deprivation, degradation. This is when we had a doubt or some really rare deprivation or degradation. We don't want to say it's all good because we are not sure. So just to be honest, we created this intermediary one.
I can give a quick example. For example, for air pollution, we looked at the local lens and we saw that the air pollution levels are lower than the standards for thresholds. So it means that the humans are safe, but at the same time, there is the pollution. So we couldn't say that everything is perfect. So that's why it's in near zero degradation, not zero degradation.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like. Yeah, for this we can't, or sometimes we had doubts, as you say, so we had to create this category. Then you have moderate, so it's a portion of the population that is struggling, but it's not so. Yeah, it's really a minority, and it's still a problem, but it's a portion. Or if it's ecology, we would say it's more low impact or more exceptional, occasional degradation. Then you have high. So a lot of shortcomings, and we can say it's really systematic here. A large population is certainly suffering and having their needs that are not met. And finally, severe ecological degradation. And emergency, what is the difference between high and emergency? The emergency, we say whenever it's life-threatening, so if people are dying, this is pretty much an emergency. If the human rights are abused, this is also really severe. And then for the ecosystem, it's really when we are in a crisis situation, I would say. So now you have the keys on how to read exactly. But I will give a tiny overview on what's our observation with this. So you see it's pretty red. That's something we can see, sadly. And it means that in Riga, we surpass a lot of ecological boundaries or social limits. Locally, but also impacting people worldwide and the health of the planet. Let me start with the part where there are the most emergency. We don't see so well the color, sorry, but these are emergencies. And we see that the right side has way more emergency than the left. And so this is quite expected because here this is climate change. So we know there is a crisis right now. Land conversion, we actually saw that Riga, if everybody consumed like Riga citizen, we need 4 planets. So the land conversion, this is why it's emergency, it's pretty bad.
And I think I can add for the land conversion also, if we would have to use if we would have to produce food for all the people in Riga, we would need the area of the size of the city, which is 40 times the size of Riga. So this is just showing how we are in these countries. We are not the only ones with these kind of results.
Exactly, we're not the only one, but our consumption has a pretty big impact and negative impact actually. And so this is more ecological global, but if you look at this, that has some emergency a lot as well. So this, as we say, the data we have is not the best because it was really difficult to find this data. And we did a lot of assumption with calculus, but what we already had, we thought it was better to still try to have something to say, you know, like instead of letting a lot of gray zones, we thought, let's try to have a first picture. It doesn't need to be perfect, but we have a tiny idea of what is happening. And we see here, this would be climate migration, so housing. We would have some responsibility with the climate migration. Here, what is it?
I think there was like child
education.
labor.
Yeah, it's child labor. We actually contribute to child labor from what we see from our numbers. We're still contributing to consume products that may be produced by children. It can be phone, clothes, some things like that. So health, same dangerous working condition. So we can see that our consumption really have a negative impact, and we can question this. Try to be less into this thinking of cost efficiency, but also ethical, sustainable consumption could be really interesting. And now let's go finally to the left side. So here in ecological local lens, you see some also pretty bad degradation, but it's actually show how much there is an untapped potential. You can store way more carbon or harvest way more energy in Riga. So it's really an opportunity. So it's not only showing how awful things are, but also how much opportunities there is in this portrait. And also the soil quality could be improved, also the erosion protection against erosion. And finally, if I go into here, we don't have any emergency, so human rights abuse or people dying, we don't have that. But we have some high deprivation here. So we already saw health. The life expectancy in Riga, for instance, is not that great compared to the European average. It's actually, I think, around 70 years old, and the average was 80 in Europe. The mobility, also having safe roads, we can improve that. Social equity, all the difference between social classes and the gaps in wealth. And also, for instance, gender equality, LGBTQ plus minorities being more integrated, disabled person being better integrated in society. And let's finish with a more positive thing. We still have some parts that are in the Doughnut still, so it's important to highlight. the well-being. In terms of cleanliness of streets, noise levels, we're pretty good. There is really a nice living environment. The cultural, here we are in the Doughnut. It's really a rich culture offer in Riga. Connectivity, it's near zero, so it's pretty good. Education, the water quality, the air quality also, it's near zero. So as you say, because it's pretty in the standards, but there are still pollution, but we're really good still. So yeah, I think this is most of what I can say for now, but you can really look into the reports we will share with you. Water quality is also good, yeah. And then I let Lina say what we can do with this Doughnut.
I just wanted to quickly add that in the Doughnut, we're really focusing on looking at what is going wrong, not necessarily just looking at what's going right. So that's why maybe also it can look quite grim, because we are focusing on looking at whether we can sustain the human basic needs, but also not overcoming the ecological thresholds.
Yeah, exactly. And it's why we have zooming in and policy highlight to show we are doing a lot of things in Riga. And for instance, all the positive things are not shown here, because here we really want to focus on degradation and deprivation.
But within the report itself, we have much more detail for each of the categories. Okay, you have the... Okay, so how can we use the Riga City Doughnut portraits, but also Doughnut portraits in general? Leonora touched upon this a bit, but I wanted to say from our experience. So first, we invite Riga's residents, organizations, and businesses to explore the Doughnut economics, but also this is relevant for everyone, also for your cities. First of all, just trying to grasp the concept. Now we're really putting it in a very short time, but it takes quite a lot to digest. But it's a very useful framework to actually look at true sustainability and not just the growth. If we look at the report, you can gain insights for both the local and global situation with Riga, and also identify what are the worst, so to say, what are the critical challenges that we face here. In this way, we can also engage with the Doughnut. We can try to reflect on these issues. So why is it that most of the shortfalls are within the global categories? Or why is it that in some environmental categories we're doing good, but in some bad? And this is this can spark a lot of conversations. And lastly, as Garant mentioned, the thresholds sometimes are very hard to put, very hard to understand. So what means a deprivation or not? So we invite you actually to challenge these thresholds, look at them and say, hey, no, I think that this should be lower or higher, because that is also very important in the process. For the municipality and also for every municipality in general, Doughnut is good that it can help to set informed priorities and shape new policies, because we can see, for example, what are the biggest issues, and those maybe are the ones that we would like to focus more, and maybe in places where we actually have good conditions, we are putting all the effort in and we don't actually see it. So it is kind of a strategic compass, as Willem already mentioned. So we can also take accountability much better on what is our impact both locally and globally, because when we see the model, the Doughnut itself, we can realize that, yeah, we have a role to play also in the global scale. And we can also use the Doughnut as a monitoring tool. This portrait, we could make it a few years later and really see how we are changing, how we're developing, and then we can understand whether the policies we are implementing, whether they are actually fruitful. And for everyone else or people in general, we invite you to create your own city portrait. and create some events around this, because it's not only about this data part, it's a lot about citizen involvement, it's about informing people, it's about really making a community around it. Because the main point of the Doughnut is that we are not just focusing on individualistic needs. There's also a lot about communities, and that is also part of the sustainability. So we really invite you to also share it with others. And here I also put the website of Doughnut Economics Action Lab. We are mentioning them all the time because they really helped us to understand how to move on with the Doughnut, and they are the main, the speaker Leonora, she was from the deal team, and they are basically the main people to keep in touch with and contact, and they can help with so many things. So it's a big shout out to them as well. Yeah, and as I mentioned, you can create your own events, and we are happy to see that there are some people who have been attending as well. And we have had already 3 Doughnut events in Latvia. 2 were for youth educators, and 1 was for Riga citizens. Most of the pictures are from there. And on the back, you can see some of the Doughnut's we created together with people, where we asked them to show what they think are the main, so to say, the good parts and the bad parts, and spark discussions from there. So there's a lot to do. There are different activities you can do with the Doughnut. And about the resources, so basically in this week we have published the short report, which is a summary of all the indicators, which is 150 pages. This one is only 14. And it is actually already available online, and we are really happy to publish it, and you can take a look. It has a really nice design and all. And yeah, here's a QR code, and it's also just available on Riga's website, so you can take a look. Thanks a lot.
Yes, and there is someone who was part of this citizen engagement also here. You can raise your hand, who was also, yeah, here. Yes, maybe you want to comment something, or? No. It was a nice presentation. Maybe someone from online have a question, or from those who are here? Sure.
Yeah, I'm curious about the number 40 territories of Riga to feed residents of Riga. We have around 1/3 of all residents of Latvia living in Riga. If we think about metropolitan area, it's around 1 million, which is around 60% of all the residents of Latvia. But 40 territories of Riga would be 18% of Latvia, which means our countryside can feed us. And actually, they don't have that many residents. So we are actually self-sustained in this aspect. So maybe that's a good part if we think, like, if we consider whole country. Maybe it's not that bad. I'm just thinking how to improve that picture. It's too red.
I heard that you said that you use this Doughnut also as indicator. So this is something that already is working. We see it and we can think about the solutions. That's true.
Yeah, I think, yeah, this is exactly why we are asking you to take a look at it and give your comments. And we were also thinking about this. In one sense, it is really true. But then the next question is, okay, but in what scale do we look at? Do we look at city scale? Do we look at the country scale? Like, should the country be self-sufficient, or maybe the region? And how do you go from there? And if we would map all the other cities that are in Riga, so is it gonna still fit into the borders? But yeah, for sure, it depends on how you look at it.
It's true that you can look at the population actually, and not just the surface of Riga, and yeah. But I agree with that. It was about land conversion, and this makes sense what you say. But then also we always looked at several indicators, or when we could actually, and we also have this thing where if we all consume like Riga citizen, we need 4 planets. And so sometimes we had one indicator that is pretty positive and one that is more negative. And what we did is not to do an addition, subtraction, but we say, okay, there is positive and negative, but then the whole thing, positive doesn't cancel negative. So we still have a negative outcomes, even if some are positive, because we should not tolerate degradation or deprivation. And yeah, we also use, to combine different indicators, we had to think of how to do, and we didn't want to subtract. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not to compensate, actually. Positive doesn't compensate negative, exactly.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Are there more comments or questions? Great, yes.
Hi, I'm Linda from Riga City Development Department and Strategic Planning. I have a question about mobility segmented as well for air pollution in this local scale. You mentioned if there are deaths, that it would be emergency state, but in mobility aspect, we have like set strategic goal to have 0 deaths in traffic accidents, but we are not there yet. So can you elaborate more about this? And as well for air pollution, a lot of deaths are in Riga linked with the respiratory. Yes, thank you. And the actual situation was quite good. So could you elaborate on this?
Yeah,
it's a very good point. Yes.
On mobility, I understand emergency. We say whenever there are deaths, we would say it's emergency. So I see your point. For mobility, we actually looked at the accidents. I don't know if we looked at the lethal, like the accident that killed people, but we looked at the number of accidents and we saw it was really high.
I think we
Yeah.
I think we also compared with other cities for this one.
Yeah, we compared, and it's pretty bad.
Yeah, and also we looked at, I think also for the pedestrian, I think not only for safety, but also, I don't remember.
You know, I remember
for the
pedestrian could be better, like accessibility for pedestrian. And then people were really happy with the transport, the public transportation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As for the air pollution, this one, for example, is one of the, I would say a bit of an issue because we were looking at data that we have from the measurement stations. And this is the official data we have. And in the official data, we can see that the thresholds are not passed. So it means that the air pollution is not that bad. But at the same time, when you are living in the city, you know the context that, for example, this street, Valdemara Street, it's very busy and also quite polluting. But at the same time, we don't have the sensors here, so we cannot say it. So it's also a bit about like, we know it is actually worse, but we wanted to really stick with the data we have, and in the report itself, we did mention that there are other situations where the air quality is worse. So yeah, this is also a really good thing you brought up, because these kind of things we had to think about in a lot of the categories, because it's not that straightforward to figure out. So which is the point where we stop, and what is the data we use or not?
Yeah. And I would say also it's interesting because here you talk about air quality, but also health. And I think in health, we could add even more indicator on the death related to the air pollution.
Yeah.
For now, we put some cause of death. I think we say some of this, but it was more the life expectancy, and we saw it was pretty bad. So it's more reflected in the health that we are in a higher level of deprivation. But that it's true that in the air quality, it could be more reflected as well.
Yes, thank you. More questions? Great, we have 15-minute coffee break now. Please go outside, breathe the air. Those who are online also move around. So we have been sitting here for 1.5 hours. And yes, grab some coffee, grab some water, grab everything you see so you can hydrate yourself, please. We will start in 11:30. Let's see you back.
It is good. It is good.
Methodology very well.
Oh, thanks. Really? Thanks.
It is like once you go into the actual practical, then you start to see.
For normal research, it usually takes a year and a half.
It was very fast.
It's very extreme.
We did it.
Doubtable.
It's the first portrait that we were thinking.
You have to start with something, of course.
Exactly. We were, and it should be. Oh, that's a bit too tight. And it should be improved over time. And also, we were thinking of collaborating, maybe with research or university. Could be on the long term.
Very good idea. Yes, like studying it first.
Yeah. And the thing is that in the beginning of the project, you're like, okay, let's just try to make this portrait. And then
Seminar or gathering, both here in Riga and those online. You're very welcome to ask questions and join us with your comments. Those who just joined us now, we are streaming live from Riga and having presentations presentations of Doughnut economy in both Riga and other cities. And we are continuing with the, as you mentioned, city of Grenoble and how it looks in Grenoble. Doughnut economy project manager, Nathalie Lemer is going to give us a presentation. Nathalie, do you hear us? Oh, yes, here you are. Hello.
Yes.
How has been your morning so far?
Quite busy. I'm in another meeting at the same time, but
Great.
I'm happy to
activists.
contribute.
Super. Yes, those who are active people, I think they always have those 2-3 meetings. So thank you for joining us. Now we are trying to put you on the screen. Let's have a 10 seconds for Santa to put you on the big screen, and then you'll be able to share a presentation. We have around 20-30 people here present, and also the same amount of people online. And now I think we have you online now. Yes, the floor is all yours.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. So hello everyone. I'm really happy and glad to present you what we have been doing so far in Grenoble, and I just want to congratulate our colleagues from Riga who have done also a great job around Doughnut economics. So Grenoble is a city located in the southeast of France in the Alps, and as you can see on the picture, it can be really hot during during the summer. And also we have some issues regarding inequalities or air pollution, etc., etc. we decided to work with Doughnut Economics in 2022 when the city of Grenoble was awarded European Green Capital. And it was with the idea of adopting a new framework that would allow us to go one step further in terms of transitions and ecological and social challenges. Politicians from the municipality voted for to launch a political approach, Grenoble 2040, which is an approach that has different aims. First one is to link social and environmental issues, and you can see that Doughnut Economics is also allowing to have these interconnections between social and environmental issues. It was also about reconciling reason and emotions, basing our work on a solid scientific basis, thanks to the planetary boundaries, but also having a space to create new narratives to help people project themselves in the future and giving the flow to emotions. And last but not least, to connect the local and the global in the same spirit of Doughnut Economics. As an organization, we have some local aspirations, but some global responsibilities. And you can see on screen some of draws that we did to question people and to make them think about what if, inspired by Rob Hopkins' work, of course. And also maybe to say that Grenoble 2040 is made of different teams. I'm working on Doughnut Economics, but I have some other colleagues working more on new narratives, and also a team working on the resilience strategy to anticipate and to prevent the city and the citizens from catastrophe, or being able to face any challenges that could happen in the future. So when I started working in 2022 in Grenoble, the political command was to make this data portrait. So I just to give you some inputs about it, I worked with different teams of the municipality to get their vision on their expert vision on some items, for example, on climate change, energy, etc., and to get some data that would be relevant to give a global and transversal picture of Grenoble. What you can see in blue is a comparison with the national average, the French national average, and it was also a way to show where Grenoble stands at, looking also at the national scale and seeing how we are to reach our targets of reducing our gas emission or improving air quality, etc., etc. We faced a lot of questions regarding the indicators and the data choices, as many cities that work with Doughnut Economics, since sometimes the data are not that relevant, or they are not illustrating the whole dimension. For example, for the culture, here you have an indicator on the people going to the library, so it's just one aspect of culture, but at least it's simplified and global overview of the challenges in Grenoble. After that initial diagnosis, I started working on the main public policies and strategies of the city to see how our current policies are taking these challenges and issues into account or not, and help the department of the municipality to go further or to better integrate all of the Doughnut dimensions. But I will just explain it right now. And at the same time, we worked on a shared data observatory within the municipality to centralize and harmonize our database, since every department had one, and we didn't had this global tool in which you can find any data about any dimensions. So this is an example of the political strategies Doughnut mapping I made. It was the first one regarding the Air, Energy, Climate Action Plan. And the idea was just to emphasize the different actions that are proposed in this strategy, and to look at the whole Doughnut overview to see which kind of dimension was not addressed, or how the dimensions could interact and would be interdependent. And it was also a way to make some connections between departments of the municipality that, for example, is working on health, on housing, etc., etc. Here you have on the left side, sorry, it's in French, the municipal health plan. It's one of the pillars regarding living actions. And on the right side, you have the strategy for responsible purchasing of the municipality. And it's interesting because, for example, they figure it out, but they didn't take into account water footprint, for example. They explain it because it's hard to take it into account when making purchasing strategies, but still, by mapping on a Doughnut this strategy, it was really obvious that water was not taken into account, and then it's a way to start discussion with the teams working on the subject. Last year, I started also to work on another level with the financial and accounting department on an environmental and social decision-making tool, which looks like an analysis grid. You can see the structure on screen. So I worked on Doughnut economics, but also with the European taxonomy and all of the green budget, etc., to get the best framework we could to analyze and to assess municipal projects impact. So you can see that we have both environmental and social responsibility as an organization. We have on the environmental aspect, climate change and all of the energy and mobility, heating issues for the first axe. The second one is about biodiversity, ecosystems, and all of the pollutions issues. And you have also all about the resource management, waste management, outputs, inputs, etc. And for the social aspects, you have first human health with the vital needs, access to food, to water, to health, etc. Then you have also social cohesion. It's all about living together, citizenship, inclusion, peace and justice, social link, culture, education. And the last one is about social justice regarding all of vulnerabilities and precariousness, all about inequalities, equity, etc. So the idea with this grid was to get a 360-degree framework that could be applied both to investment or functioning project of the municipality and assess their impact. One of the aspects of this grid that is particularly interesting is that we are both looking at the global impacts on the territory. It means on the metropolitan, for example, metropolitan area of Grenoble, but also on a very located place where, for example, a project will be implemented or launched, etc. For example, we will be looking at the air quality on the whole territory, but we will be looking at the impacts on the biodiversity in a garden or in a school that will be vegetalized. And the same goes for the social axis. We are both looking at the conditions of work conditions of the staff and the civil servants during the project. Have they opportunity to take part to the decision if the project will improve their everyday work conditions, etc. So really on the project. And also, of course, we are looking at the social impacts of the project on the population, the users, beneficiaries, etc. So this double materiality of social, environmental, and territory and organization is really interesting because it gives a very integrated vision of a project. And how are we assessing the project? So we created a quotation system. So it's a scale between less 3 to plus 3. And the idea is to ask project managers to assess which proposition is best, suits the most with the project. So for example, if you are making some work in a building, will it improve the energy consumption of the building from less than 50% of the current consumption, or more than 80%, etc., etc. And so it allows us to have a global idea of the impact of the project. And you can see on the right side on the screen that we are making some little donuts, as we call them, and you can see the green impacts, which are positive actually within the donut, and in orange, these are the stop improvement, etc. And the idea was to make this analysis, to run this analysis on investment projects that were still on studies before the municipal politicians had to prioritize and decide where would we put the budget, and which project will be done in 2025, or which one we could renounce because the impacts were not that satisfying. So this was really in an idea of giving another making decision tool with the political aspects and the economical one, to get also this social environmental vision of the project. And this year we are reusing this grid in for another use. We have now a new regulation, mandatory regulation from the state in France, and every municipality has to analyze the depends of the pasture to see whether they are in favor or not regarding environmental axes. And these environmental axes are actually the European taxonomy. So you can see everything is linked. And so we are using this grid also to analyze projects that are already done and finished. In another other examples, so in 2023, we organized, as every 2 years, a big event, the Cities in Transition Biennale in Grenoble. And in 2023, we had the pleasure to welcome Kate Rowers and some people of her team. We had 3 days dedicated to donut economics. So Kate made her first conference in France. It was in a park, as you can see on the pictures, and she met the mayor of Grenoble. Also, we ran some citizen workshops with Rob, also a colleague of Kate, and it was really nice because we had this big donut exhibition, a 3D immersive donut exhibition, and we made people just run inside out, and it was really about feeling what it is to be out of the donut and how we can enter it. Also, big day was dedicated to some of the donut economy cities and regions. So you can see we had a little view of all people from European countries mainly. And it was also the opportunity to make some workshops. So you have a little vision. And last but not least, I just wanted to make a little a little word about this new project. It's called Neighborhoods 2014, not 24. And it's actually a project that is run with the urbanism department of the municipality to define how we could improve the everyday life in each neighborhood of Grenoble. You have a map on the left side, and we have identified 16 neighborhoods that are really places of everyday life, not administrative division of the city, to make the neighborhoods more hospitable, health-friendly living environment. And this is a project interesting because we made some prospective approach to assess the local impacts and how it could evolve in the next years. And now we are running some workshops in the local citizen house, as we call them in France. It's like places in the neighborhoods where citizens can find some information or get some help for all the administrative stuff. And so we are running some workshops to get their the best places in their neighborhood, and also to work with them on what they want to preserve in their neighborhood and what would be nice to be changed or to be improved for their comfort every day. And just to conclude, so I'm sorry it was maybe a bit quick, but it's been almost 3 years we are working with Doughnut Economics in Grenoble as a visualization tool with the diagnostic and the data portrait, as an analysis and monitoring tool with the strategies and the project impact assessment, but also to exchange with citizens. And now I can really say that it's getting it's really becoming a new common universal framework, and this is really nice because it allows to work both with the politicians, with project managers, with the operational teams, and everyone can find some interest in it for its work. So it's really nice, even though we have still some limits, of course, regarding the political dimension. We have some municipal election next year in France, so it could change the way Doughnut Economics is applied in Grenoble. I hope not, but still we will figure it out in a year. You have also all of the technical dimension. Today we have lots of tools within the municipality, and the idea with Doughnut Economics was not to add another one, but to make it relevant with the other approach we develop also in the city. And of course, operational dimension with all the question of the data I already mentioned a bit, but it's a lot of arbitrary choices. We are limited by the availability of the data, etc. So we are always working in progress and trying to improve the tools and the work we're doing with Doughnut Economics, but it's really exciting and interesting. Thank you so much for listening, and I can take some questions if you have some. And just to mention that the data portrait I showed was published, so you can find it. It's also in English, or I can share it with you. I also published a report in last November to share the main subject I just explained to you. And also I'm working on the second data portrait that would, I hope, be ready for May. So I will share, of course, it on the DEAL website and with the Riga team, but it's still work in progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Natalie, as you can hear, you heard applause in the audience. Thank you so much. I would just add that all the presentations will be available for those online and both of those who are present. Are there any questions? Yes, Paula.
Hello, Natalie. Thank you a lot for your presentation. I had a question of clarification. So you showed us this kind of a grid where you were evaluating from -3 to +3, the scale. So the question is, did I understand correctly that it was like opinion based from different stakeholders and they evaluated? Or could you please recap how did it happen? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. Indeed, it's one of the limits of the experimentation we ran last year. The analysis is run qualitatively, and we are answering the 36 impact criteria, which are some questions with the project manager. So there is a subjective part, but the questions are made so that it relies most possible on the reality. For example, regarding circular economy and material reuse, we are asking, for example, what percentage of the materials are reused? Is it 30% or 50% or 100% recycle? And most of the time, we had both the thematical and the operational team in the room making the analysis. So we had the technical and operational vision at the same time of the global project. And most of the time, one of the team had the answer. It's also about looking at how the project is conceived. So sometimes you have some data within the project, also about, for example, work conditions, pollutions, etc. You have some data or some studies that are run. So we are trying the most possible to get to some real aspects that are not subjective, but still you have a bit of certainty since it's human people running the analysis. We don't have the budget to make, for example, carbon footprint of every project of the city. So we have to rely on this individual analyze, but then we have an interdisciplinary committee, which role is to relook at all the analysis of the project and to be sure that they are at least relevant one to another, and that the analysis run is quite equal for all.
Thank you, Natalie. Are there more questions? Yes, here.
Hello, Natalie. Very nice to see you again. Thank you for your presentation. I have a question about the use of the Doughnut or the use of SDGs, because we know maybe the cities where you are from, like Braga or Istanbul or Uppsala, or in Holland also, many cities use SDGs as a way to analyze and to measure and monitor. You have chosen for the Doughnut. So I was wondering, how did that go? Or was there any discussion about it, or did you manage to integrate it somehow? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Willem. Nice to see you too. Actually, the decision was made before I was recruited at the municipality. In Grenoble, the municipal team is from Green Party in France. And from the beginning, they were not that into SDGs. And so when they started interesting themselves in Doughnut economics, they really find this framework more ambitious. And the fact that it has a scientific basis with planetary boundaries, it was a big plus for them. Also, the SDGs are made on an international perspective. And for example, in France, speaking about do not have people starving anymore, it's not that we have other issues regarding food, but this is not the first issue. So Doughnut economics appears to be a more flexible framework to be adapted to the specific territory issues and particularities. And politically, they were really more economics than into SDGs, but I think SDGs can be really interesting, and I work, of course, with SDGs in my everyday work to get some indicators, to get some, especially on the social dimensions, to get some inputs about how to treat the different dimension and to adapt them and downscale them to Grenoble. So I think it's a really interesting framework also, but I didn't really had the discussion of choosing between one or another. It was Doughnut economics.
Thank you once again. Let's give a round of applause for your presentation and also answering the questions. Yes, let's we applause her. Yes, thank you. It's great to share this experience among other cities in Europe, and we have a city. Next city is from Glasgow, and let's share our knowledge from there with the professor Petra Meyer, and we are going to have a senior research fellow, Joe Winterbottom, who have joined us also online. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, here. Hello.
Hello.
We are
Hi, I'm going to share my
on
screen.
the screen. Everyone can see you right now, so the floor is all yours and your story about Glasgow.
I have a very rare problem in Glasgow. The sun is shining, so I hope
Yes,
you
the
can
same here.
Okay. Yes. I don't know about Riga, but in Glasgow that very rarely happens. So good morning, Riga. Joe, are you okay to share slides? Yes, that's starting. So congratulations on reaching this important milestone. I remember when we got there in Glasgow, it was a big sigh of relief and quite a sense of pride. The same for you as well. So my name is Petra Meyer. I'm a professor of public health at the University of Glasgow. I lead research on government policy approaches that maximize the society's health and well-being. And I'm particularly interested in economic and environmental drivers of health, and this is how I got involved in our work. So I co-lead a research program that's called Gallant, which aims to deliver a climate resilient Glasgow through a city-university partnership. So working really closely with our partners at Glasgow City Council to develop the Glasgow Thriving City Portrait program of work. And Joe and I will provide a brief overview of the work we've done in Glasgow so far and the plans we've got going forward to make economics operational in the city. Next slide, please. So I'll first provide a bit of context around Glasgow to give some background to our journey, then talk about the City-University Partnership, which we've used to develop the Thriving Glasgow Portrait and also a digital donut that captures the portrait. And Joe will then take over to provide an overview of work in progress across the city in a moment and reflect on lessons learned to date, which we hope will be interesting. So Glasgow is Scotland's largest city with a population size not so dissimilar to Riga's, I believe. It's known for parks and history and culture, architecture. The River Clyde connects us to our maritime past, and I think there are similarities there with as well. But at the same time, Glasgow is facing significant challenges, including impacts of climate change, but also well-known problems around health inequality and poverty. In 2010, Glasgow City Council set up the Sustainable Glasgow Partnership, aimed to bring people together from across the city to collaborate on tackling these very tricky systemic issues in the round. The initial focus of this partnership was on emissions reduction, but over time this has expanded dramatically to include sustainability, well-being and social justice. And in Glasgow City Council declared a climate emergency, and work got underway to co-create a climate plan, which was finalised in 2021 and now guides sustainability actions across the city. In that climate plan, there's 60 different actions identified, including the development of a Glasgow Green Finance sustainability actions, support for hosting the COP26 in Glasgow a few years ago, and a commitment for Glasgow to join the C40's Thriving Cities Initiative, which provided a starting point for our city portrait journey. Next slide, please. So Gallant then, the City-University Partnership. We were really So first of all, Glasgow stands for Glasgow as a living lab, accelerating novel transformation, because that is unpronounceable. We've just called it Galland. We were really fortunate that we attracted research funding of about 12.5 million euros, which has really helped us do some of this research, and a lot more beside. But Galland's developed into a really productive partnership between researchers at the university and Glasgow City Council, working together to achieve a vision of developing a whole system solution for a just and sustainable transition delivered at city scale. And I guess for us, it's important to stress that just and sustainable transition be real emphasis on
I'm sorry, we cannot hear you anymore.
I think we've lost Petra temporarily,
Yes,
so
yes,
I can carry on. I do have Petra's notes, so oh no, Petra is back. Okay, here we go.
Oh, did you lose
Hello,
me in
Petra.
between? Sorry about that. Develop indicators and acquire data, and then operationalize the portrait to help the council move forward. Next slide, please. So as I say, for us, a starting point was the idea of system transformation and how we understand and exploit interconnections. And the way we're approaching the whole system transformation is to exploit opportunities to create synergies between the different actions on different donut dimensions. I'm trying to show this here, where we believe that things start moving when we see how everything's connected and we understand the dynamics in the system, and we think about how the social, the economic, the political, and the ecological can come together. As Kate Raworth sometimes says, go where the energy is. And we often see that when we start to articulate common purpose between different parts of the city government, this generates a lot of goodwill and energy. So using our work as a convening tool and to foster common conversation has been really important. Next slide, please. So developing the city portrait then, I'll give you a brief overview. We started in January 2022, finalized the initial city portrait in April 23, and we worked alongside the City Council and C40 Thriving City Initiative to create this portrait. And there were two broad work strands. So one was the desk portrait, pretty much as we've heard already, mapping all the different local government strategies and policies to the donut economic domains. The examples here on this slide are a very small snapshot of the mapped policies. There are a huge number of different things going on concurrently across the city, and this work took a full-time researcher several months. It allowed policymakers and researchers to understand where there were gaps, so donut domains that are not currently mapped to any actions across the city, and also where there is common purpose. As I say, different policies can sometimes address the same goal, but that might not always be visible to people. So our policy partners found this extremely helpful to see where there's overlapping ambitions and enable better alignment across a large and complex institution like the City Council. And then the second work strand involved a series of workshops that brought together more than 130 policymakers, businesses, charities, scientists, and local people from across the city. And that ensured that our thriving visions were co-created for the city and that it was grounded in the views of people that live and work here. Next slide, please. So we started out not with data, but with thriving definitions. As you've seen, the City Portrait Playbook asked the 4 lenses questions. What would it mean for the people of Glasgow to thrive? And what would it mean for Glasgow to thrive within the natural habitat and so on? And through the workshops, we developed thriving definitions for each of the 44 local, global, social, environmental donut dimensions. The thriving definitions are a very brief aspirational description of what the ideal state would be for Glasgow as a thriving city if it managed to balance the needs of the planet with the well-being of people in Glasgow and around the globe. So next slide, please. This zooms in a little bit. So focusing on these questions, we've got the thriving definition for each of the 44 lenses, but also we asked our workshop participants, what could this look like in practice? So, you know, under food, people describe local community food growing and food sharing initiatives, healthy food options being more accessible and affordable than ultra-processed food options. And we've got these, again, for each of the definitions where people sort of tell us a little bit of what are the actions, what are enabling factors, what are conditions that would support progress towards the overall definition. Next slide, please, Jerry. So launch events, similar to what you've got today. We were really lucky that the city portrait could be launched in our Kelvin Grove Art Gallery, a really lovely venue. And people you see here are our leader of the council, same as, you know, your Lord Mayor, Susan Aitken at the left, and Leonora, and a few other people that you may recognize from previous meetings. And what was really nice is we had really good attendance there. We managed to get lots of civil society, businesses, just community members who were interested in the room. Fantastic event. And that was really nice. But I should say just before that, in August 2023, something more important almost happened. The City Administration Committee at the top executive government committee approved the thriving portrait and the definitions, which sort of means that it's got statutory power as well. The city committing to working towards the thriving definitions and embedding them in their workflow, which was a really important point in actually committing to this work. Next slide, please. So just to show, this is the report. There is a link. We're very happy to show the slides, and there is much more detail about the portrait and how we generated it and how we're using it. Next slide, please. Just a screenshot of our digital donut. So this lives on our website and allows people to interact with the different definitions. So you can see, you know, what people told us the definitions should be, and a bit about how it could be done. It's also got functionality then to present quantitative indicators in the same way as you've shown, and data once these become available, and also the interlinkages between the different domains. And Joe will say a little bit more about our work in progress there. Slide. So finally, thought from me, we were trying to do with the definitions is not just to think about the definitions on their own, but to use the donut to inspire different ways to think about whole system transformation. So one approach for us was to use the 4-lens view, and I'm showing you sort of the little matrix here on the left. For example, from a local ecological perspective, addressing vacant and derelict land could have both positive and negative impacts. Soil quality improvements could allow better nutrient cycling and provide alternative uses for these sites, such as growing food. But colleagues also found that these sites that have been left alone for a long time now host rare species. So biodiversity loss is a concern when sites are repurposed. So you've got to think about both the positive and the negative. And as derelict land is so often located in poorer areas and associated with crime, transforming them could also provide some social equity benefits. So, and so on, and so on. So you can use the dimensions to think about all the positive and negative consequences that actions in particular areas of the donut could have on the local, the global, ecological and social aspects. But then we can also think about the synergies between the dimensions. So for example, here, a potential impact of harvesting energy on other dimensions, such as an opportunity for more community ownership of energy infrastructure, or global knowledge exchange to improve social equity in similar communities across other countries, or reductions in emissions that help limit temperature increases or ocean acidification around the world. So this is sort of how we started to interrogate you know, interconnections between different things and using the Doughnut in practice. And I'll now hand you over to Joe, who's been instrumental in taking this work forward, and we'll go through some of the ways we're now using the portrait in a little bit more detail. Over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Petra. It was a really great introduction. So I'm a senior research fellow at the School of Health and Wellbeing at the University of Glasgow. And I've got a background in working in local and regional government and the health service. So delighted to be working with Petra and the team on the systems transformation element of the Gallant programme and using the Doughnut economics framework as an integral part of that. I'll talk through some examples about how we've been using the Doughnut economics framework and our thriving definitions in practice to try and bring about change within the city of Glasgow. So I've got some items here listed on the slide, and I'm going to go through each of those in turn. One of the first things that took place after the council adopted the thriving definitions as part of the city administrative committee was to explore how they could be used as part of their approach to climate impact assessment. There was a commitment within the Glasgow's climate plan, which Petra mentioned already, to create a climate impact assessment for policies and projects. And the ambition here was to look at how could we embed those 44 definitions from our city portrait into that process. And consideration is being given to both positive and negative impact. So this is a way of bringing into practice the element that Petra's talked about already, about thinking about what might happen if you do take one particular action, implement a policy or a plan. It's being trialled and is being reviewed at the moment, and that's going through the processes. So I think that there will be some, there are certainly some challenges. It does add quite a lot to the impact assessment process, and we need to make sure that it's proportionate. But it so far seems that it has provided a valuable kind of checklist for things that perhaps wouldn't have already been considered as part of the decision-making process. We've heard a lot about indicators already, and we know that selecting indicators for each Doughnut dimension is an important part of the city portrait process. And they can be used to create a snapshot of as is and an indication of progress towards the future vision. Now, we've taken a very collaborative approach to this and have been working with the City Council to establish a baseline and historical measures where possible for a number of indicators in relation to each of our thriving definitions. And the idea was to develop a comprehensive data set that could be integrated as part of our Gallant data hub. So that's something that would then be publicly available. It started with the desk-based work that's included in the city portrait, and then we embarked on a process of in-depth interviews and discussions with over 50 council colleagues to try and make sure that the indicators that we were using were relevant and going to help influence the way that they were delivering and measuring the work that they do within the city. We agreed a set of criteria, so the indicators need to be accessible, measurable, up-to-date and updated regularly, but really meaningful for policies, but also sensitive to policy. And also possible, where possible, can be benchmarked against local authorities. And it became apparent fairly quickly that it was going to be really difficult to find indicators for all 44 of our thriving definitions that met these criteria. For some indicators, it's an obvious choice, things like air quality, but for others, it's been more challenging. And in particular, some of the global ones have been difficult. In terms, we know that that's a problem that other cities have found too, and we're working in collaboration with Deal and my colleague Mary Menton to convene a group to see if we can progress this by looking at the opportunities collectively and learning from each other. One useful learning point has been the way that the engagement process with our colleagues about the indicators has actually been a really useful way of raising awareness of the city portrait itself and the thriving definitions. And that's really helped us get across the silos and into different parts of the council to discuss the implications of the Doughnut for different areas of the council's work. So as well as making these data sets available on the Gallant Data Hub, we're also working on the visualization. This is just a kind of prototype here of our digital Doughnut, where we've been looking at how we can show the shortfall and the overshoot in a way that's accessible and hopefully will be something that we can kind of click through with time. Again, and you've mentioned earlier on and through some of the presentations, the challenges of agreeing where the thresholds are for these is something that we're still trying to work through. The other thing that Petra mentioned is the mapping the interconnections. So drawing on the literature and the workshop data, we're now pulling that together to add a visualization to our digital Doughnut, which will help identify some of those synergies and trade-offs between the different dimensions. But one of the things I wanted to talk about in a little bit more detail relates to the policy mapping, actually, that Natalie's already told us about, that was been undertaken in Grenoble. And also Petra's mentioned in terms of what was done in creating the portrait. But what we've been trying to do is turn that into something more usable to help our colleagues on an ongoing basis have a way of assessing the way that their policy decisions are going to affect our ability to achieve those ambitions within the city portrait. It was quite difficult to generate buy-in into producing systems maps. One of our ambitions for Gallant was to produce systems maps, and it's been quite difficult to get people to engage with that without actually being able to see what that involved. So what we did was break it down and make it more engaging by building some prototypes that map the policy actions from plans and strategies of particular interest through the thriving definitions. And the question really was, as Petra mentioned before, is if we deliver the actions that are in the plans that we've got, how close will that get us to achieving those aims? But also, how robust is it? Is there a synergy across those policies that will lead towards that? But where are the gaps? And of course, the limitation of that is that that it really only gives you a picture of what will happen if we deliver everything that's in the plans. And we know that in the current financial climate, of course, there's a risk that we might not be in a position to deliver all of those things. So it's actually a helpful tool then for looking at what would be the implications of stopping doing some of the actions that we might have committed to previously that we may not be able to do anymore. We started with the National Planning Framework because it was an opportunity for us to respond to a consultation around spatial planning and land use in Glasgow, and that was a particularly helpful way. And then from there on, we moved into the climate plan and the climate adaptation plan, and then the economic strategy. And then from there, we, at the suggestion of council colleagues, we looked at the council's overarching strategic plan and brought in the digital strategy, the housing strategy, and the local heat and energy strategy. And what we've been able to do, now you won't be able to see the detail here, it's quite messy, but you'll get a picture of what it looks like and what our colleagues have been able to use, is that we've created an interactive tool that maps every action from each of these strategies through to the thriving definitions. And it means that you can zoom in and out, choose keywords, pre-assign tags. So we actually do have a search function for the Sustainable Development Goals, actually, which relates to Willem's question from earlier on, because that we know for some people that is an area of interest. And the idea is that you can focus on a particular connection or a particular thriving definition, or just look at certain actions within a policy to see what their impact might be. But it gives council officers an opportunity to think about that in the round. And they found that really helpful. And as a result of that, we're now working with our council colleagues on user testing and verifying the strength of the connections between each of them. But also, we're now going to be working with our economic development colleagues to look at how we can use a systems approach to the development of their new economic strategy. And that's really been as a result of them seeing how it needs to be a much more holistic approach. And they're really keen to make sure that it embeds the principles of donor economics as part of their commitment to creating a well-being economy. So we should have a prototype of that people can have a play with at some point fairly soon. We've also been using systems thinking and the donor economics framework in practice as part of our work on our own Gallant work streams, looking at addressing flood risk, halting biodiversity loss, regenerating derelict and polluted land, looking at active travel and community energy. And certainly we'll be using systems methods and doing systems mapping as part of this, but making sure that we're bringing in different elements of the donor economics framework to help people think in a broader way about the issues that are relevant to their particular packages of work and how they interact together. And another piece of work that we're particularly proud of that's developing really well at the moment is how we're starting to use the Doughnut economics framework to engage with businesses in Glasgow as being an important set of stakeholders. On the back of an event supported by Leonora in November 2023, we've developed a partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. And we've so far held a desktop review and held a scoping workshop, which is going to result in some case studies of how local businesses are operating in line with the Doughnut economics model. And that will we'll be able to use that to raise the profile and have further conversations and develop opportunities with additional businesses. And we've also funded a demonstrator project looking at creating a community entity dashboard, which will help explain the benefits of and raise awareness of the opportunities around micro power stations within the city, which is something we'd like to see developed further. So just to sum up, we'll keep going with lots of this. We've still got work to do to raise awareness of the thriving definitions, and we continue to promote the Doughnut economics framework across our colleagues. We've still got work to do around the indicators, and I'm particularly excited about the collaboration with other cities around the global indicators work. And we're hoping to finish the digital Doughnut work as soon as possible this year. And then the policy mapping is leading us in new directions, which is enabling us to influence policy development within the council for years to come. So really all of that is looking at the real world applications of systems research and the use of the Doughnut economics framework to hopefully make a difference for the people of Glasgow. We've got a couple of websites there if you're interested, and if there's particular queries that we don't manage to cover in the questions just now, please do get in touch.
Sorry. Yes, thank you. That was very inspiring. A lot of things are going on, also including businesses. So that's what we had, like a coffee break. We talked about this during the coffee break. So maybe you have any comments or questions? Great. Anything online? Okay. Thank you so much then. That was a very clear presentation, obviously. And good luck with the future ideas and initiatives. And we are continuing with going back to Riga story. And let's have a round of applause first of all. And of course, we wish you were here in Riga, but hopefully we will meet again. So we have a very interesting area. Some of you already visited it. It's Viskaļi. It's the place with the quality of good life, and there are several events taking place. And we have a representative today from this Institute of Design for Quality of Life, and it's Paula Cukura. And she will have her own presentation about how you are part of this Doughnut economy.
Yes, thank you. Labdien. Labdien, labdien, labdien. Hello, everyone. Please be human. Stretch a little bit if you need. Move. I noticed that it's quite hard to keep being still for an hour in these chairs. Take a cookie and yeah, be human, please. Yes, so for the upcoming 10-15 minutes approximately, I will give a short introduction into what is social economy, what is Viskaļi, the Institute of Design for Quality of Life, and yes, if anything, then it is a tongue twister. But in Latvian it sounds a bit better, but to be honest, just a little bit better. And yeah, and what does it have to do with the Doughnut? And so first of all, about me, I am Paula Cukura, and there are a few of my favorite logos there. Various organizations I've been working for the past 7-8 years. So I'm coming from the non-profit governmental sector predominantly. And I've been calling myself a values-based activist because I've been jumping around different organizations, but what has stayed there has been this values and the impact I and my teams have been aspired to bring to the world. And lately, I've been starting to call myself like an institutional hippie since I've joined the Riga Technical University a few months ago. So there's a technical university, one of the biggest in the countries, and I have joined it to work with social innovations and social enterprises. So to bring also the social impact thinking and aspect a bit more in this otherwise very technical institution. So yeah, so I'm an institutional hippie, like kind of a little bit. But so what is social and solidarity economy in the first place? Just to be clear, as academics and researchers tend to do, they don't have a common agreement. Yeah, so the terms are a bit unclear and the interpretations are very vast, but there are three things that are common for all the entities involved under the umbrella of social and solidarity economy, which is their social and or environmental purpose. And so they prioritize people or whatever the cause they are made for over profit and any other monetary or other terms. And most likely, very often, they have these democratic and participatory governance practices. So it's not a hierarchical structure, not extremely bureaucratic, but so social impact and participatory aspect at the core of these organizations. And so there are many different legal and structural organizations that goes under this umbrella term. And so for the social economy, for example, there are a lot of NGOs, associations, foundations, cooperatives, and also social enterprises, which are yet another, as some researchers tend to call, a galaxy of social enterprises, because in various countries they are defined and understood differently. In Latvia, we have a law on social enterprise, so it's a very kind of narrow understanding what that is, but it's not the case for many other countries. And when it comes to solidarity economy, it's more of all sorts of community-based initiatives, formal and also very often informal. So for the common good of the community or society at the larger scale. And just to bring a little bit of data inside and be aware that I'm going to talk about social enterprise here. Just to bring a bit of a picture that we're not talking about something very marginal, but about quite a big of network, for example, with 2 trillion annual revenue. Wait, now I'm confused. Is it globally or is it in Europe? I would say probably globally. And so it's an industry, let's call, twice as big as the advertising, and it's even bigger than the apparel industry. So it's quite an impressive numbers, with creating a lot of jobs and being one of the inspirational, in a way, fields where there's a lot of women in charge, let's say. And of course, not maybe of course, but still it is quite in need for a larger funding, as you can see. So it does have a 2 trillion revenue and still lacks yet another 1 trillion. And I will come back a bit later why it is important. Okay, so that's about the social economy and bringing us on a similar page. So what about Viskaļi? What about Viskaļi? Basically, Viskaļi is a place where we ask a very simple question. What makes you happy? And what makes a life quality? What is it? So in a way, we are redefining what being rich means and what is wealth. And in this, in like a form of a social incubator. And so we are running, so it's a former faculty building of Riga Technical University. It's quite big, as you saw, 15,000 square meters. And we are running the place on the three main values, which is community and being inclusive and open to all sorts of people, and co-creating the place together. So everyone who joins the Viskaļi, they become the co-creators of the place. So it's not, as I said, hierarchical, but very distributive by design. And of course, we put a lot of emphasis on the placemaking and creating so the space together. And when I say we, I mean, of course, the residents of the Viskaļi, but the place is run by an NGO called Free Riga. And we've been doing this for the past 11 years, taking abandoned places and transforming them into creative community hubs. So that's kind of in our DNA to work on these principles of social and solidarity economy. And currently the Viskaļi is a base, let's say, for about 200 residents from various fields. So there are a lot of different people. Some of you were visiting yesterday already. Yes, I see some nodding. Nice. It was cool. That's a quote. That's a quote, huh? And yeah, so there's a lot of happening inside with very many different people. So you might ask, but what does it have to do with the donut? Why am I telling you all of this? And my personal opinion is everything. It has to do everything with the donut, in a way. Because when I first encountered the concept of donut economics about 2 years ago, I thought, finally we have something on how to, in a simple and easily to understand terms, describe what is Viskaļi and what is its purpose. Because when I say quality of life and this long title of Institute of Design, and what is even quality of life, and how is it even possible to build a place that addresses questions like these? Then that was the place where the donut came in as a very great help to speak with people, with various stakeholders, and having this common, in a way, understanding what are we talking about and where do we stand here. And this is a bit not the best quality pictures, but you've seen this multiple times today already, so I assume you might get a picture of what that is. And so what we are doing now in Viskaļi is really taking the tools developed by the Doughnut Economics Action Lab and applying it to our own context, and trying out mapping different tools available to also position ourselves in the city and on a broader perspective, but also to position the residents and the people who use the space, who are part of this institute, to position also them on the local, ecological, social perspective, and also the global perspective. So it's also, in a way, not actually in a way, but it's has a lot connected to this grassroots non-formal education, to bringing these concepts out of the round tables of the city hall, but next and in front of the people whose lives are actually predominantly affected by these questions. So if someone hasn't seen already, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to visit the doughnut-economics.org and checking out a lot of tools, hundreds of case studies and different supporting materials on how to work with the Doughnut with various stakeholders. For example, this week, yes, I also participated in a community gathering for academics on how to teach Doughnut economics in universities. I'm still driving on the inspiration of this community call, like, yes, okay, so to whom should I talk? And how to implement these courses in also, for example, maybe technical university. Let's see how that goes. Yes, and including we have some upcoming workshops also scheduled in Viskaļi with Viskaļi people on also aligning our own, yes, it's a social enterprise, still an enterprise in a way, to how to align ourselves even more and being ingrained in the vocabulary and mindset of the Doughnut in all the levels what we do. So coming back to the title of empowering social and economy through the Doughnut, how? Or how is this happening? As I mentioned already, of course, it has a lot to do with shared vocabulary, that we speak in the same terms and have the same understanding. And when I say we, I mean various stakeholders of all sorts. And having shared methodology, although it varies, of course. But for example, in Scopus scientific database, there are at least 68 different social impact methodologies that can be used. And so it's great that now, for example, in Riga, we are kind of agreeing or starting to implement a Doughnut as a way on how we could measure our social impact. And of course, it also helps us to build the cross-sectoral partnerships, enabling policy proposals and access to funding, which is crucial, especially for the social and solidarity economy organizations as key drivers of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, because of course there's a lot of impact coming at the boardrooms, but eventually it's also a lot has to do with the grassroots and people in communities and people in neighborhoods who are directly affected by the policies and by the social and ecological challenges out there. So yes, so building strong ecosystem for social innovations and for social economies, which are the organizations and initiatives who are the key stakeholder in bringing the change. And it's very, very inspiring to see this example of, for example, Riga municipality working together in a very, very close collaboration with the NGO Green Liberty into developing this Doughnut. And I hope to see also the industry joining in the upcoming, in a foreseeable future, let's say. And for my personal closing remarks, I will use the language of the modern society, let's say, which is a very simple. Yes, perfect. This was exactly the place where you had to giggle a little bit. And Yes, I would like to really express my very heartfelt gratitude to all the people in this room, and especially the ones developing and bringing the donut into this city. And thank you for leading by example, and also encouraging and empowering by your example other people, for example me. Me, the institutional hippie. Okay, let's not make this as a common language for me. Huh? I have a job title. I'm a project manager, okay, in the Department of Innovations. But yes, I am extremely grateful. That is very, very important for me, for my work, and for a lot of my colleagues in various organizations. I'm sorry, Edward, for moving that much. He's really doing a great job in providing the live stream. And yes, thank you very much. And this is me again. I wish you a lot of strength and patience and a lot of success in getting into the donut. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you're like a power station of enthusiasm. So I think it's just very nice to meet someone so enthusiastic about this and also implementing that in her own life. Maybe you have some questions about Viskaļi or her professional work as a project manager. Maybe someone online has something to add to what Paula said. I really liked your invitation to look on the website. I haven't done that, so it's a good idea to also manage my work, for example, my working space. But maybe you have, yes, sure. You there. This is a super mic.
Question to a hippie. No, just joking. So we are speaking here about cities and the donut economic model for the cities, but I'm thinking about some smaller. Does it make sense to make a donut economic model for smaller communities? I don't know. I was even starting to think if I can do it for my family, let's say, like to measure where I am on the donut. And like, also I wanted to ask, like, how is it costly to make this model, like what Riga did for your portrait? Was it costly, and is it also costly to do it for the smaller communities? Does it make sense to do it for the smaller communities?
All right, maybe Lena can answer about Riga, and you can answer about Viskaļi, or you can go for both.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for your question. One thing I wanted to mention that probably no one knows your city better than the nonprofits running the city, in a way, let's say. And so yes, I think it is valuable. In the case of Viskaļi, we are operating in a way as a micro city, providing a lot of different services also inside the building. So we are in a bit specific place, but it can be applicable to other living labs, creative quarters, bigger community places in your cities for sure. When it comes and also how much does it cost? Of course, it depends on each place, but I can say that printing materials approximately 50 euros, snacks about another 50, 100, depends. And then, of course, depends on either the salary or voluntary work invested in preparing the workshop. So my cost scale was like 100, 150 euros. I believe that for Riga it might be some zeros to it, but I will give a mic, yes. But we are at the beginning, so I was talking about one workshop to start the discussion. And when it comes to family, I think that's a very valuable practice to look at your lifestyle choices that you have in the family, of course, because great change of course, it comes from the big international agreements and from the municipalities and national governments. But of course, it has not little, but our personal lifestyle choices are the ones also that has immense impact on how this planet looks like. So yes, I highly encourage you to also bring this to your Sunday afternoon outing with family.
I wanted to add about the fact that we were showing some pictures from the citizen events we had in Riga, but if you go on the website, you can see that a lot of cities have also used the Doughnut as a tool, as a game, also for kids and families. Like you don't have to go in a very complicated way. I know also in Glasgow they did a lot of different citizen activities, and it's definitely possible to also talk about it in your families. You don't have to make a portrait with indicators as necessarily in the very beginning, but you can just talk about the fact that, hey, maybe these cookies that we have here, maybe they traveled from half the globe, and yeah, just bring these conversations in. I don't know about the budget, maybe something.
Hello, I also got the mic. By the way, I'm Santa from NGO Green Liberty, and I'm not just technician here in this event, but also I was involved in all the Doughnut economics project, and I'm still involved. I just wanted to actually add to what Liana mentioned, that one of the events, what we did was in an eco school network. Do you know the eco schools? Yeah, some are nodding. Might be that in your countries as well, do you have, or maybe you have UNESCO school networks or other type of school networks. So what we did, we went to one of the gatherings of the teachers and we showed the methodology, and they found it interesting to use with their either school or with their kids or youngsters. It depends who do they work with. And as you can see there behind, we kind of developed it's not copying exactly what we showed and how that all the data are collected, but we made it a bit easier to understand, for also to use it with young people, for example. And as Liana already mentioned, if you go to the website, then it's a lot of resources where it's tools, methods moving around, and you can do it also in your family, not collecting data, but more thinking about what is the impact or how do we see it in our school, family, and community, or Viskaļi, and so on. And I had the privilege to join workshop in Viskaļi, where Paula was leading that, and it was for me very valuable and insightful, because both people who are living there, they are regular people we see on the street, let's call it like that, or someone who has a profession in one field and never thought about the global impact. And so the discussions itself was very valuable. So I think, I don't know how it will evolve, but the beginning was to sit down and to have discussions. Answering the second question, and it might be that Alice is more knowledgeable, but as I understood, some of you are in the network of net zero cities, and there are available funding. So this particular project also was it was funded, yes, by. Sorry, it was a tool what Riga City used to attract funding to do this, and this is the first stage for this particular project. So might be if you see and you are inspired by this, then that potentially you can also apply for the funding using this particular Net Zero Cities pilot cohort funding phase. What do you call it?
Great. On the end, we get really, really inspirational, and also those concrete activities and sharing. Does someone else want to share something? Yes, great. William.
Yeah, just from Amsterdam, where we have this Doughnut initiatives since 2019. And in Amsterdam, we have a Doughnut coalition. So that is all the organizations in Amsterdam that are working with the Doughnut, and there are many. they come together sometimes and they share what they do. So it creates a community. And that's really nice. Maybe if I hear what you're doing here in Riga, you have also a lot. So that could be an idea to connect with those people. And another interesting thing is the International Doughnut Day or Doughnut Week. That's every year, so in November mostly. And then all around the world, there is doughnut events. And you can do, as a city, you can participate and join. And then you get a lot of inspiration from other cities as well. So,
Thank you so much. Is there anything else we missed, or anyone maybe online? Someone has taped something in? No, great. So we could. I know that those who are going to watch this later on, thank you for joining us now, even not live. Thank you those who joined live us here in Riga, and also those who were online. It was very inspirational, and we have a lot of content to share now and think about. So let's have a little informal event now. We still have some coffee left. So I'm going to say bye to those who were online. Thank you for joining us, and we'll continue here. Thanks. And thank you, Santa. Thank you, Santa. Santa had many roles today. Santa had many roles today.
And thank you, Eva, for moderating this.
Yes, this is great. I was thinking, like, where is media here? Because we have this Riga